Hello and welcome. I am so glad to be here. I am Chip Mc Neal, and I am an artist and educator and a researcher who's looking at the issues of arts, education, and social justice. And I am so glad to be here as part of the California State PTA's 122nd annual convention. Congratulations, 2021. A lot has gone on in the last year, I know, but we have a lot to look forward to. We have a lot to hope for. And I'm here to share with you some of my work, some of my research, and hopefully it will give you some strategies for how to address what's needed right now in this era of education. The name of this presentation I have entitled Emancipatory Pedagogy in Action. And it's based on some research I've been doing in my upcoming book, Advancing Emancipatory Pedagogy. I hope that this is something that's meaningful for you. I hope that you hear what you need to hear. I hope that my words resonate in a way that gives you hope and that gives you a sense of the opportunity in front of us right now. So all of you parents, teachers, school leaders, and administrators, I say welcome and thank you for watching today. As I said before, I am Chip Mc Neal, and I'm calling you from Oakland, California, which is really the land of the Chochenyo and Ohlone people. This is unceded land that was not given, it was taken. And I want to acknowledge that. And we reap the benefits of those indigenous peoples who sacrificed their lives for their land. I am a black male. I am bald with a beard, some gray in it, and glasses. I use pronouns he, him, his, and I am wearing a black shirt and a black sweater. And as we move into our presentation, I want to invite you to take notes if you need to, but more importantly, to listen for understanding, to hopefully hear the things that you need to hear in order to figure out where you fit in this paradigm, as I said before. You know, this is an unprecedented time. It's a time of incredible drama and trauma, and they have been multiplied. Whether it be the racial unrest we've experienced because of the death, the murder of George Floyd, the Capitol uprising, or COVID-19. We're all experiencing incredible stress, anxiety, depression, anger over all these things. Something I want you to keep in mind while you're negotiating this is that people of color, and that black people in particular, the stress you sense right now, in some way or another, we've experienced it all along. And now you have a sense of what that feels like. This sense of dread, this sense of oppression, this sense of fear. Because what we're experiencing is happening right now, but we have to understand something called transgenerational trauma. Trauma that is something that is inherited, that comes from our ancestors, that's passed down, it's in our DNA, it's in our blood. And we feel this sense of fear every day as we walk into the world. And as you see the continued trauma going on and the persecution of people of color, of black men, you can imagine the weight that puts on me and on people like me. But we're all experiencing it. And unless we address hate, unless we address oppression, unless we address disparity as a community, as a society, we all lose. And as we address it, though, we all win. Because nobody wins in a society that, in fact, is so oppressive that people feel unseen, unheard, and their values and their gifts are unrecognized. I want to just let you know that I'm coming into this with some grief and some sadness. Yes, I'm glad about the result of the Chauvin trial, but let me also tell you, that's just one man. That's just one event. I didn't celebrate. I'm pleased for the verdict, but I'm also noticing that we as a community, as a country, we have a lot of work to do. And I think you know what I mean. Let's name that and let's hold that in our hearts even as we move forward into this dialogue about arts, education, justice, hope, and healing. You see, that's the thing. That's what the arts can do, right? They have the power to actually change our felt experience. They have a chance. They have the power to change our lives. They have the power to connect us. They have the power to help us heal. They have the power to help us tell our stories. That's what the arts do. Can you think of anything more important right now than that? Using the arts to tell our stories, to hear each other, to see each other, to understand and connect to each other in meaningful ways. The arts have the power to bring forth student voice in a way that is real and authentic, to help to nurture creativity, to help build community, to help us solve these incredibly wicked, complicated problems of the world, of our environment, and more. In fact, the arts help us address social problems and actually promote social change. Look at any incredible social movement of the past, and you will see arts. You'll see imagery. You'll see song. You'll see dance. You'll see theater. You'll see poetry. You'll see works around it, because that's what human beings do. They express themselves in and through the arts. It's the way we tell the story of the human condition. Is that not more important now than ever? I think it is. And more specifically, though, how do we bring in equity and healing into that? And I have been thinking about this for a long time, a very long time. And this is how I sort of conceived of this concept of emancipatory pedagogy. Emancipatory pedagogy. It is a healing curriculum. Because right now, healing is the curriculum. I didn't coin that phrase, but I do adopt it. I do believe in it. I do hold it. Healing is the curriculum. Listen, our children, our teachers, us, our families, we're all traumatized. We have to we're getting the job done. We have work to do. I know that. But we are all in trauma. We must think. We must pause. We must notice. We must name it. We must name it and claim it in order to unpack it, in order to diminish it, in order to quell it. And that's what we're doing. That's what we can do together. Let me say this. I know I've already said a little bit about the trauma, but I'm going to say this so that we are clear as I move into this dialogue. Let us acknowledge that our world and our communities are not equitable, nor have they ever been. This pandemic and the growing movement against police brutality and for Black lives, it continues to bring into sharp focus what is often considered historic injustices and inequities. These disparities are our present realities, especially for Black and Indigenous people, for immigrants, for disabled folks, for transgender folks, for non-gender conforming folks, for poor folks, for displaced, for those who are housing unstable, for refugees. Let's look at the ways in which this pandemic and all of its associated elements have, in fact, created more hardship on all these populations. Black lives matter. All lives count. We're all in pain. And as we address anti-Black racism, everybody is healed. Everybody is lifted up. Everybody is better off. Because as we address the most oppressed among us, all of us are lifted. That's the possibility in front of us. That's the possibility in front of us. So what I'm talking about is not new. It's a new way of looking at it. It's a new way of looking at pedagogy. It's transdisciplinary. We can't do it in silos. We can't operate as if things are isolated, because everything is interconnected. We know that now. Everything is interconnected. The pandemic showed us that. Because the same hardships we're experiencing here, they had in China, in Tunisia, in Italy. Same pain. So this is not new. What I'm putting forth isn't new, but it's a new way of looking at it. It's a new pedagogy for a new age. It's a way to teach peace through an emancipatory pedagogy based on love and liberation. It is about uplifting this notion of culturally and linguistically responsive pedagogy. It's a way of addressing social emotional learning, cultural intelligence. I like intelligence better than competence. It's a way of considering self-care and empathy, forgiveness, sensitivity. Emancipatory pedagogy in action is about reflection, it's about healing, and most importantly, it's about hope. It's about hope. So you might be saying at this point, Chip, you keep talking about emancipatory pedagogy. What is it? Well, it is a big concept that's been around for a long time. It might be associated with Paulo Freire, but the truth is it extends far beyond him. It's a concept of looking at the what we teach and how we teach in a critical way. So emancipatory pedagogy is related to critical pedagogy. Emancipatory pedagogy is both a theory and a practice. It's something that relates to liberation and or giving freedom. It's about social and political rights. It's about freedom of thought. It's a way of thinking, teaching, and learning. And, dare I say, love. Emancipatory pedagogy is about love. How do we reinfuse love and compassion into education in a way that matters? We've been afraid to use it, that word. We've been afraid to use that concept because we all have to be detached. We're all trying to just survive. But what we've forgotten is that love heals. Love brings understanding. Love is patient. And love in education is a way of remembering that it's all about relationship. That's really what I guess is at the heart of that concept, isn't it? Love is about relationship. So as I began doing my research, I had to come up with a question that helped me to make sense of the literature. And I had many sub-questions, but the truth is it all came down to this one key question. What would constitute a transformative, emancipatory K-12 pedagogy that teaches for healing and liberation? And that is the research I began many, many years ago, and I became even more focused on that in the last few years. Before I continue, let me say that it was W.E. Du Bois who originally said it, and Malcolm X later, who said, "Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today." How are we preparing for it? And how are we preparing our children for it? Listen, we can't just keep teaching the same old way, because the world isn't the same old world. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's not the same old world. Do you know that as many as 20% of the jobs that exist right now did not exist 10 years ago? We're teaching our children to negotiate a future that we cannot predict. We are teaching our children to negotiate a future we cannot predict. We don't know what jobs will be around. We don't know what technology will do. We really don't know what technology will do, because in my lifetime, we've gone from a phone the size of a computer the size of a room to a computer that fits in the palm of your hand. That's pretty dramatic. So imagine what our children are going to go through. What world do they need to be prepared for? They do not need facts. Most of those facts are Eurocentric, and it's just sort of didactic education. Facts. Remember, we were drilled when we were in school. Facts. Give me the facts. Memorize the facts. What year did Columbus sail? You know, all that kind of stuff. That's not what children need anymore, because that's called Google. I'm not trying to give them money. I'm not trying to advertise for Google, but I'm just saying you could look it up. So what they need is to develop the capacities, the understandings, the sensitivities to negotiate a globalized world, working with people who are not like you. They need to know how to collaborate. They need to know how to invent. They need to know how to solve problems creatively. They need new skills, abilities. And if we want to end the kind of hate and crimes that are existing, we have to teach not citizenship. I want to call it something else. I want to call it a humanship. We have to teach them how that it matters. Relationships matter. And most importantly for our Black and brown children, that they matter. Their lives matter. And the hope that they may have lost can be regained if we help them see it. And that they won't toss their lives away and do destructive things if they have hope. You see, hope gives promise. Isn't that our job? Figuring out how to teach hope? I think it is. All right, let's frame the problem. Let's understand deeply what I'm talking about. Racial disparities in student achievement are consistent across all schools, regardless of school rankings. What that tells me is the pervasiveness of the inequities, because it doesn't matter whether you're in Ohio or Columbus. It doesn't matter whether you're in San Francisco or Washington, D.C., whether you're in Florida or you're in Ohio, all the children who are Black and brown score at the bottom of the thing. Now, is it the tests that are inequitable? Is it the process of teaching that's inequitable? Or whatever it is, something's not right. Let's name it. It's been going on for a long time and it hasn't been addressed. Let's also consider the fact that there are facts that tell us that Black and brown children are disproportionately impacted by oppressive education, retention disparities, talent recognition disparities, and even educator inequities. Why is it that Black and brown schools always get the new teachers who just came out, who just graduated? They don't need the newest teachers. They need the teachers who are the most advanced, the most culturally responsive, the most knowledgeable. It's because we don't pay teachers enough, and that's a whole nother topic. We have to pay teachers what they're worth. We have to pay them. If you're raising the next president, the next senator of the United States, why are we paying our sanitation workers starting salary higher than a beginning teacher? Something's wrong in America. Something's wrong if that's the case, and it is. Nevertheless, I'm framing the problem. As we look at unequal discipline, we look at the fact that out-of-school suspensions disproportionately fall on children of color. Black girls. We also have to understand that our children are part and are experiencing economic disparities that impact what they eat, how they sleep, their health, their nutrition, their learning readiness, right? They're not sitting there like trying to distract you because they have nothing else to do. They're hungry, they're tired, they didn't sleep well. There are things going on. There are mitigating circumstances that we have to come to understand. That's culturally responsiveness. Understanding that that child is not acting out in order to do me harm. They're acting out in court because that's the only way they can make sense of the world. They're doing the best they can. Economic disparities are incredible hardships. Let's look at the facts. Black children graduate at half the rate of white students in America. Well, I shouldn't say a different way. Black students do not graduate at the same rate as our white counterparts. And here you have it. Black students drop out at twice the rate of white students. They drop out of school. Why are they dropping out of school? Because they don't see themselves in the curriculum, because it doesn't matter to them, because there's nothing relevant. They're not motivated. And there's no relationship that makes school count. Let's understand that the prevalence of traumatic experience in Black learners has, as I said before, just like the economic disparities, has impacted their ability to be learning ready. Black children are more likely to have emotionally traumatic experiences in childhood, such as abuse, neglect, or incarceration, or death of a parent, or witnessing violence, almost twice the rate of their white counterparts. That's so under the same circumstances, we have to understand our black and brown children are under duress. So if that's the problem, then I thought to myself, let me look at the research to find out what the solution is. Let me look in a different way, in a lens that maybe my white brothers and sisters, my white researchers haven't looked at. Let me look at this from an Afro-Kana, an Afrocentric point of view. Let me look at this from a neurological point of view, neuroscience. And let me look at this from a pedagogical point of view. That's right. 3 different ways of looking at the problem in order to find a solution that is comprehensive for a new pedagogy, for a new age. And this is what I came up with. The literature says to me that one of the 3 most important aspects of a successful educational experience for black and brown children right now is motivation. Motivation. They have to have some reason to want to be in that space, to know that what they're learning matters, it counts, they have hope, it'll count for something. Untethered relationships. We thought we understood the relationship between the learner and the teacher, but we didn't. It's much more intimate than we thought. The way when you look at that child into her eyes, and you take that moment and you take a beat and you see them and you tell them they're good enough. They believe it. If you believe it. Culture. How am I bringing who I am at home in my community into the classroom? Do I have to become someone else? Do I have to do do I have to do what W.E. Du Bois called the double consciousness? I'm not talking about just, changing your language as you walk into the room. I'm talking about leaving part of yourself out of the room. And if we're making children do that, then we're not giving them the tools for success, are we? So altogether, Black and Latin students deserve educational equity because they are underserved right now. If we do nothing, the number of white students in our public education system will continue to shrink, and those students of color will continue to grow, and the disparities will only get bigger. We'll have a dysfunctional society, dysfunctional education system. We've got to stop, recalibrate, and reorient. Because remember I said, we are teaching for a new age. A new time. Again, here's the list of jobs that didn't exist even 10 years ago. Imagine the jobs that are going to exist in 10 more years. We have to prepare them as vessels who know how to negotiate in society, not people who can hold on to facts. Facts don't matter. Facts don't matter. I said before, facts don't matter. What matters is these incredible important elements. Not the least of which is multiliteracy. Multiliteracy. Literacy, knowing not only how to read, how to interpret, but knowing that social media isn't real life, but how is it relevant? It's knowing when you read an article whether it's true or not and whether to believe it. When you see a poster or a billboard, are they just trying to sell me cigarettes and alcohol, or is something else at play? You see, multiliteracy, being able to negotiate the world and know what's going on, what people are saying, and what the hidden subtext is behind these messages. So much to say. So much to say. So, emancipatory pedagogy, a progressive, student-centered, culturally responsive pedagogy for healing and liberation. And I've created a framework which is focused on the pillars, which include culture, identity, and relationship, creativity, and healing. And these 4 pillars are the dimensions of emancipatory pedagogy as I understand it. As we address each one of these domains, it reminds us as architects of learning spaces that these are the things we have to consider. This isn't everything. This is not like, I haven't addressed the school environment and all these other things. This is just the pedagogy in the classroom. Okay, so when we're looking at this issue, as I said before, it can't be solved by a single strategy. It needs multiple strategies, and we have to understand the systems element there. At the same time, we have to lift up this notion of culturally and linguistically responsive teaching, and that means we have to directly and consistently and comprehensively address racism and white privilege, no matter how awkward it is. And if you don't have the tools yet, get the tools. If you don't know where to go, then find out. We all have to do our due diligence. We don't have the time to not take decisive action, to be passive and to leave it up to someone else to hand us the thing. We have to do the research, we have to do the reading, we have to do the dialogue, we have to do the work as a people, as teachers and parents. And I'm going to tell you how to do it. I'm going to give you some strategies, I should say. But so this text I'm creating has multiple chapters and multiple elements. I'm really just talking about these things I'm highlighting in red here because there's so much more to say. I talked about the importance of relational learning. Growth mindset. Growth mindset is no small thing, because I saw it happen in myself. I believed the narrative that was being handed to me when people told me that I had a learning disability. Not true. I believed it though, and then it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Little did I know that I was just an artist and learned differently than I was being taught. I wasn't learning disabled. I was an artist. The growth mindset, though, says that as I'm addressing a topic that I don't know about, I have the capacity to develop understanding of this thing. I have the capacity to grow my thinking, because most children of color don't believe they do. They think they're fixed, they think they're finite, and they think they're as limited as the generation before them and before them and before them, and the disparities they see, they think is their destiny. And we have to change that. And partly the ways we change that is through critical dialogue. Our children have spent so many years on their computers, they forgot how to speak to each other. They forgot how to speak to us, and we forgot how to speak to them. Critical dialogue. And we must think about the ways in which taking care of each other and taking care of our planet matters. That means ecological literacy must be at the core of curriculum. If we don't teach our children to take care of our planet and each other, then what are we doing? Right? What are we doing? I think in some ways I talked about creativity, but maybe I didn't highlight the importance of movement and dance education. And people think that because I was a former dancer, and I was, that I think, oh, you've got to teach dance. Dance is the thing, it's the art form that I love the most. And maybe it is, but here's the thing. This is not about my preference for dance. This is about the fact that this human body, is the thing that is the vessel that will carry you through your life. If you don't learn to love it, if you don't learn to love yourself, to eat well, to stay healthy, to not pollute your body with drugs that will destroy you, to not risk damaging this holy vessel, this spiritual vessel. If we don't teach that, then what are we teaching? So dance education is important because it teaches you not only about culture and society and the ways we tell our story through movement, but it teaches you to love this vessel that is your body, the human body. That's why dance is important. I think of arts as also a vehicle for multiculturalism. Multiculturalism is basically moving away from dead white men that I learned when I was in school, and learning that all kinds of people from all phases of life create art, tell their stories in different ways, and that those perspectives all add to the beautiful array that is the human experience. We got to think about how we use technology. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I wasn't, and I'm as old as... Doesn't matter that. Don't be afraid of technology. Technology is our friend. It is neither, but it is neither. I think it was David Perkins from Harvard Graduate School of Education said, technology is neither good or bad. It is benign. It is up to the user to infuse this meaning on it in terms of the way it is used. So technology is nothing to be afraid of. Yes, they're tracking our every move. Just never forget that. They're tracking our every move. Did you hear what I just said? Every move. Your watch, your phone, they're tracking you. So just stop. Too late. Too late. You should, if you wanted to get off this boat, then you would have had to never get a cell phone. They're tracking you. So anyway, but how do we use technology for good? How do we use it in education? How do we use it in the arts? How do we use it to build the capacities that I'm talking about? Those are the questions we need to ask. Not just how long, how do we make a good Zoom presentation? We have to really be thinking about technology in new ways. And we have to leverage that in ways that matter. As we think forward, we have to think about creating new pathways for teachers to become teachers, and how we help teachers to adopt these capacities and these strategies, and to learn the importance of self-reflection and the ways to track, name, and mitigate your own implicit bias. But we have to remember one big thing. Everybody's stressed out. I said that before. Now I'm talking about it in a different way now. Everybody's stressed out. And if everybody's stressed out, then we have to teach to heal. And that means we have to take care of our teachers. We have to give them space and time to breathe. Oh my gosh, I have so much to say about that. I've witnessed this over so many years. We have to take care of the stress in the educational paradigm. And we have to try to figure out a way to undo that in whatever ways are possible, because nobody can learn there. It's so funny, we create these situations where everybody's tense, everybody's working like this, and everybody's like this, and like, go learn, go teach the children, go do it fast, go do it again, go do it better. But the truth of the matter is, if we went slower and did less, it would be worth more in some ways, because we would have time to see each other. We would have time to hear each other. We would have time to connect with each other. I think of it kind of like food. There's fast food, and that's considered generally unhealthy, and then there's slow food. That's home cooking. I'm talking about education that's made of home cooking. I am not talking about fast food. I'm talking about home cooking. Slow down. Slow down. How do we teach our children to solve the world's biggest problems? We need solutions to the world's biggest problems that are only multiplying. What is our energy source? How are we going to clean the planet? How are we going to feed everybody? We have things to do, and we are not the ones to solve it. It's our children and our children's children. There's someone who coined the term solutionary. I love that word, solutionary. You know her name. I don't know her name right in this moment, but I love that book, Solutionary, because we need people who learn to solve problems. They learn. Their very purpose of education is to teach you how to solve problems, right? Get along with the people, build community, heal, and solve the world's greatest problems. That's what we should be teaching. Now, okay, so I'm talking about all these words. Who is it for? Who is it for, Chip? It's for everybody. It's for everybody. There's a way in this for everybody, because remember, this is not about just teachers, just educators, just the students, just the parents, or the legislator, or the policymakers, or the teaching artists, or the arts educators. It's for all of us, because if we all come together and have a critical mass of people working on healing, reconciliation, we can change the world. I believe that. I believe that. I hope you believe me. That means we've got to really address teacher education in new ways. I'm hoping to, in the future, be working with education training programs so that pre-service teachers get the skills they need, the strategies they need to develop self-reflection and address bias, but also to develop the capacities that I've been describing. Now, they'll tell you they don't have enough money, that we don't have enough money to retrain teachers. We don't have money to do all the things and take the time that I'm talking about. Guess what? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Don't let your education leaders tell you they don't have time to do the things that we as parents and as community know our children need. You have money to put my children in jail. You have money to put them in prison. You have money to incarcerate them. Why don't you have money to teach them and to help them develop the capacities to question authority, to question society, and to solve the world's greatest problems? You'd rather lock our great minds away than teach them what it is to be human. And when we look at the cost, look at the cost to us as a society. Look at the cost to us as a society. Shall we build prisons or shall we build schools? You choose. Shall we build prisons or shall we build schools? I say schools. If we build twice as many schools as we build prisons, paid our teachers, and got over this ways in which we're embedded in history. We're teaching the way we did 50 years ago. Does that make sense? If we can get over those things, we can teach for a new age. And we can teach for a time that needs us. So, let me say this. Anti-Black racism is not just an education problem. It is a health crisis. Anti-Black racism is a human rights and a health crisis according to the San Francisco Human Rights Commission. It is now recognized by the states, and the federal government will eventually come along, because in every way, shape, and form, from education to health to jobs to in every aspect of life, Black and brown children, Black and brown families are at the bottom. So how do we address this? We have to repurpose what it means, what education means, the purpose of education. We have to rethink it. What is the purpose of education? We have to rethink it. We have to dismantle this colonialism in education and stop teaching them as if they're going to be factory workers. That's a whole nother story. You don't want to get me started on the whole thing about all 8-year-olds are the exact same place developmentally. They're not. But, I know I can't upset the whole apple cart. So I'm not going to try to go into the way we should restructure grades. I'm going to stay with the curriculum. We have to restore and renew the curriculum. If we do even some of these things that I name, we are saving lives. We are saving lives. Because children with no hope lose purpose and become part of the statistics that we know so well. So we have to save lives. As we think of emancipatory pedagogy, I want you to think of both academic and social achievements. I want you to think of emancipated global citizens. That's the word I was looking for. Global citizenry. Global citizenry. That's what I'm talking about. We're raising global citizens who are caring, creative, self-aware, empathetic, multiliterate, earth-friendly, and they are solutionaries. Their purpose is to look at what needs solving and to address it collaboratively and beautifully. I love this quote from James Baldwin, who said the purpose of education is to create a person, let me start again. The purpose of education is to create in a person the ability to look at the world for themselves, to make their own decisions. Wow. How simple and how beautiful. If that's not what our teachers are teaching, then we have to invite them to do it differently, don't we? So, I put forth a lot of concepts, a lot of ideas, a lot of notions. I put forth my framework, I put forth this pedagogy, and you say, Chip, what do we do? So what do we do now? What understanding do we have? That's why I'm writing a book. because I can't say everything I need to say. I can't teach everything I need to teach. And so the book is going to have a lot of more words in it. But in the meantime, I love that phrase, in the meantime, I want you to think of this. I call these the 5 C's of emancipatory teaching practice. This is what we need in our schools. This is what we need in our communities. I want you to hold these 5 C's as if they are a bed in which we want our children to lie. We want them to understand more than ever that they are loved, that they are cared for, that we see their pain. We want to create community in a new way. That means we have to really pay attention to our relationships as educators and as school communities. We have to involve our families more. You have to get involved more. Take whatever, I'm not saying do something you can't do or be where you can't be. You got to go to work. I'm saying figure out your role. Figure out where you can interact. Figure out where you can be present. Because that community in the classroom is part of the wholeness and the healing that our students need. We want to think about our children. We want to help them develop a new consciousness. And that means we have to teach meditation, mindfulness. We have to help them not be afraid of their own thoughts. And to become aware of how they're feeling when they're feeling it. And to notice it in others. That's social emotional learning. Creativity. Think outside the box. Think divergently. The iPhone didn't come because somebody said, let's do it the same way we've always done it. The iPhone came about because somebody thought divergently. Somebody said, let's do something different. Let's do something new and creative. And look at what it created. Oh my God, that's amazing. We have to help them to think critically. Be critical learners, critical citizens, critical consumers. That's right. We have a lot to do. Now, those are the 5 C's I want you to think about. I created this handout for teachers. But this handout is not for you. This is for the person who wants to become a culturally responsive teacher. These are some of the critical questions I ask myself when I want to put my lesson plan through a lens, through a filter of equity. You create the lesson, and then you ask yourself these questions as you look at that lesson. And if you do that, that lesson will morph and manifest into something much more humanistic, much more culturally responsive, much more socially aware, much more healing-centered. These are the key questions. But I thought, but that's for the teachers. There may be some teachers here, but then you, parents, I created this for you. I created this for you. And if you share this, make sure you keep my name on it. You know how Black and brown people lose their credibility for stuff way too often. Keep my name on it. That's all I'm saying. But here it is. Key reflective questions that support culturally responsive teaching. This is what a parent or a school leader or a principal or a superintendent might ask of teachers in order to see how they're thinking about bringing equity and diversity and justice into their classroom. These are beautiful questions that I've thought critically about. And if you ask these questions, don't do it like you're doing a checklist and like, okay, teacher, I'm going to ask you 16 questions. No, I'm saying over time and in interactions, as a parent, you might say, show me the lesson you're teaching. Wonderful. Show me where you're inviting in student voice. Can you show me that? Where does that happen in your lesson? Or you might say to your teacher, in general, my kid's really antsy. I just want to know the way you're incorporating movement or dance into your classroom to make sure my kid is getting the important physical work that comes with dance and movement. Or you might say, ask the teacher, how do you build culture in your room? Now here's the thing. If the teacher doesn't have the answer, that teacher then knows you as a parent and as a community care about it. And now they have to address it in some way. Most importantly, the teachers are trying to do their best work. They're trying to do their best work. They're overworked, underpaid. I already said that. But here, you're helping them to become the teacher they want to be. by asking them questions that will help them to become reflective and bring in the qualities to their teaching that I've been talking about. You might say, I have a question. In general, in your classroom, how do you support students who have a different primary language at home? In what ways are you honoring the difference in language in students in your classroom? In my child in particular. What a great question, right? And now that teacher has to think about it and maybe make way for that to happen that hasn't been happening. These are the questions. I could do a whole workshop just on this, and I will in the future, but that's not now. But that's what I'm talking about. These are the questions. This is a handout for you to bring to your school, to ask your teachers, to bring to, as you witness teaching, unfold these questions, ask these questions. And it will help that teacher lean into justice. It will help that teacher lean into equity. It'll help that your teacher in your school begin to develop a new consciousness because they understand that we're all in this together and you're asking questions that help to promote reflection and critical thinking. But I know I said this before, I'm going to say this again though. I think this idea of the division between school and community is an illusion. Kids go from here to there and from there to here, but the truth is they're still the same being. And so how are we helping them to make sense of it? What are we doing as families? What are we doing as a community? Does the school need to hold more events in order to embrace community, in order to see community, in order to show that? What does that look like? These are the critical questions, aren't they? Well, I've addressed a lot of issues in this time together, and there's so much more I would like to talk about. And I'm excited, hopefully sometime later this year, to be sharing with you the book I speak of. But most importantly, maybe you have a few tools that will help you in the short term. As I think about my final words, I don't have anything written down, except for this. This is what I think. Healing is the curriculum, and trauma has impacted all of us. What happens if we slow down, soften our gaze, open our hearts, and speak to each other as if we acknowledge the fact that you have experienced the same trauma I have? What if we see in every other human being the struggle that we personally have experienced? What if we imagine that? Imagine the empathy and imagine the heart you bring to your exchanges. That's what I invite you to do. Okay, this is my last word. Take care of yourselves. Take care of yourselves. Because what you do speaks more than what you say or what you teach. If you want to teach our children to love themselves, and to take care of themselves, and to be patient with themselves, then you do it. And they will learn too. Take care of yourselves and each other. And when all else fails, remember that love not only heals, it is the thing that has enabled us to survive the unsurvivable. And we're still here. Dare I say love? Love your neighbor, your friend. Develop compassion and love for your teachers. Let's hold our children tighter. And let's love them unconditionally. Thank you.